Welcome to Motivational Humanity. You are not alone.
What if I told you that the cruelest thing life ever did to you was also quietly, invisibly, trying to make you wiser? Stay with me for a moment, because I want to talk to you today, not as a psychologist behind a desk, but as a woman who has sat with hundreds of women, just like you, who carried wounds they were never sure they deserved. Women who gave everything to their children, their marriages, their parents, their careers, and somewhere along the way wondered, does anyone even see me? You have known hardship, real hardship, the kind that doesn't show up on the outside, but lives inside your chest, quiet, heavy, and patient. And yet, here you are, still breathing, still showing up, still somehow capable of kindness. That is not weakness. That is one of the most extraordinary acts of the human spirit. Today, we are going to sit together, you and I, and talk about how you keep your heart open in a world that has sometimes treated it carelessly. We are going to talk about empathy, about kindness, and about what it means to choose grace, not naively, not blindly, but with the full, hard-earned wisdom of a woman who has been through the fire. There's something I need you to know right at the beginning of our time together. Your past hardships, every betrayal, every loss, every time someone treated you as though you were less than you were, those experiences did not break you. They broke something open inside you. And I know that can feel like the same thing. When you are in the middle of pain, when grief sits on your chest and loneliness wraps around your shoulders like a cold wind, in those moments, the idea that suffering is somehow a gift can feel almost insulting. I am not going to tell you that your pain was meant to be. I don't believe in that kind of easy answer. What I will tell you is this: the way you responded to your pain, the way you got up, the way you kept loving, the way you chose, even when no one was watching, to remain kind, that was entirely you. That was your character revealing itself. Carl Jung, one of the greatest minds in the history of psychology, once wrote that we do not find healing by avoiding the wound. We find it by descending into it, by looking at it clearly, by understanding what it asked of us. And here is what your wound asked of you, whether you realized it at the time or not. It asked you to decide who you wanted to be. Some people, when they are hurt, decide to close. They build walls, high, thick, efficient. And I understand that impulse completely. Walls are protection. Walls keep the pain out. But they also keep the light out. They keep connection out. They keep joy out. They keep meaning out. And somewhere along your journey, whether it was through faith, through friendship, through the simple, stubborn grace that lives in certain women, you chose something different. You chose to stay open. You kept your heart open. Not because life was easy, but because you understood somewhere deep inside that closing it would cost you more than the pain ever did. If this is reaching something inside you today, please share this with one sister, one friend, who might need this reminder of her own worth. I want to talk with you very honestly about empathy. Because I have noticed that in our culture, empathy has been both idealized and misunderstood in ways that can actually exhaust the very women who have the most of it. We have been told, implicitly, persistently, that to be a good woman is to feel everyone else's pain, to absorb it, to carry it, to be the sanctuary for every person who comes through our door. And many of you have done exactly that your entire lives. You have been the one who listened, the one who soothed, the one who held it together when everyone else fell apart, and you have paid a price for that, a quiet, invisible price. Brene, whose research on vulnerability and human connection has touched millions of lives, makes a distinction I want to offer to you today. She says that empathy is not the same as sympathy. Sympathy looks down. It says, I can see you're in a deep pit. That must be terrible. Empathy sits beside. It says, I know what it's like in that pit. I'm here with you. But here is what neither Brene nor most self-help books will tell you. And I think you need to hear this today. As a woman who has lived long enough to know the difference of true, empathy requires a self to give from. If you have spent decades giving from an empty well, pouring out kindness, patience, understanding, without ever replenishing your own spirit, without ever creating a sanctuary within yourself, then what you have been practicing is not true empathy. It is something closer to self-erasure, and it is something many women of your generation were taught to call virtue. It is not. Real empathy, the kind that sustains you rather than drains you, comes from a place of abundance. It comes from a woman who has done the quiet, courageous inner work of knowing herself, valuing herself, protecting the sanctuary of her own soul. And that requires something we are going to talk about very honestly today: not walls, not coldness, not punishment, boundaries. The kind that say, "I love you, and I will not sacrifice myself to prove it." A woman without boundaries is not more loving, she is more available. And there is a profound difference between those two things. Let me tell you what happens inside the human psyche when we experience sustained hardship. Because understanding this, really understanding it, can change the way you see yourself. When we go through painful experiences, loss, betrayal, grief, neglect, the invisible heartbreak of being consistently undervalued, our nervous system learns. And it learns fast. It learns to watch for danger. It learns to anticipate disappointment. It learns, as a matter of survival, to expect the worst so that the worst cannot catch us off guard again. This is not weakness. This is biology. This is the oldest, most sophisticated alarm system in existence, the human heart protecting itself. But here is the psychological reality that so many women carry into their 60s and 70s without ever having it named clearly. When our nervous system stays locked in that protective state, long after the original danger has passed, we begin to see threats where there are none. We begin to withhold kindness not because we want to be cold, but because kindness once made us vulnerable, and vulnerability once led to pain. And so slowly, quietly, without ever making a conscious decision, some women find their hearts beginning to close. Not completely, not all at once, but by degrees. A little less patience here, a little more cynicism there, a slight withdrawal from the people who reach for us. And then one day, perhaps a day like today, you look in the mirror or you sit in a moment of unexpected stillness and you think, when did I become someone who struggles to feel the way I used to feel? When did caring start to hurt so much? And I want to say to you, with all the gentleness and all the directness I have, you did not fail. Your heart did not fail. Your heart was doing exactly what hearts do when they have been asked to carry too much for too long. It began to protect you. The question we are here to explore together today is this: how do you honor that protection without letting it become your prison? Your heart's protection was never the enemy. The enemy was the story that said you had to choose between being safe and being alive. If this is speaking to something in your heart, pause here for a moment. Then share this video with one sister, one friend, who might need this reminder of her worth today. I want to introduce you to a word that I have come to believe is one of the most powerful in the entire emotional vocabulary of a woman's life. Now, I know that word has religious connotations for many of us, and if faith is part of your life, then you will hear this word even more deeply. But I want to speak about grace today in a psychological sense as well, because grace is not just a spiritual concept. It is a psychological practice, and it is one of the most sophisticated and demanding emotional skills a human being can develop. Grace is the capacity to respond to life, to the people in it, to the pain in it, to the imperfections in it, from your highest, wisest self, rather than your most wounded one. And before you take that in and decide it sounds like something only a saint could manage, I want to be very clear about something. Grace does not mean accepting poor treatment. Grace does not mean pretending the wound didn't happen. Grace does not mean being endlessly patient with people who have shown you repeatedly that they have no intention of changing. Grace, real grace, earned grace, the kind that you can only access after you have walked through your own darkness, means something far more nuanced than all of that. It means, I will not let what was done to me determine what I do to others. It means I will carry my wounds, but I refuse to let them carry me. It means I choose to remain curious about the pain of others, even when I am still nursing my own. And here, right here, is where empathy and grace become the most revolutionary acts available to a woman of experience. Because anyone can be kind when life is kind. Anyone can be generous when they are not afraid. Anyone can love when they feel safe. But to remain open, to choose empathy, after life has shown you its sharpest edges, that is not ordinary. That is a kind of quiet heroism that the world desperately needs and almost never applauds. You, sitting with me right now, You have practiced this heroism, perhaps without even knowing it had a name. Choosing kindness after cruelty is not weakness. It is the most defiant, dignified, and deeply human act there is. And you have done it quietly your entire life. I want to give you something concrete today, something you can carry with you. Not a list of tasks, but 5 gentle practices that, when held together, create what I call the sanctuary of the self. Out loud, or in writing, but clearly and without euphemism. Not, things were difficult, but I was betrayed. I was abandoned. I was unseen. I was asked to shrink. The moment we name our wounds clearly, not to dwell in them, but to acknowledge them, we take the first real step toward healing. Not every person who reaches for you deserves your deepest reserves. Ask yourself, and this is a profound question, am I giving from love or from fear? Am I helping because it fills me, or because I am afraid of what happens if I don't? That distinction will tell you everything. This does not need to be elaborate. It can be 10 minutes with your coffee before anyone else wakes. A short walk, a prayer, a page of writing. What matters is that every single day, you deliberately return to yourself. You remind yourself, I exist. My feelings matter. My inner life is worth tending. This is the art of caring about someone without losing yourself in their pain, of listening without absorbing, of being present without being consumed. Therapists spend years learning this, but you can begin today by simply reminding yourself her story is not my story. I can hold space without climbing inside her wound. Choose, every morning, the story you will tell about your life, because here is what decades of psychological research tell us. The story you tell about your past determines the emotional quality of your future. Not what happened to you, but what you make of what happened to you. Are you the woman to whom terrible things were done, and that is the final word? Or are you the woman who walked through terrible things and emerged still standing, still feeling, still capable of love? Both stories are true. Only one of them sets you free. The most powerful story you will ever tell is the one you tell about yourself. And you are the only one holding the pen. We are nearing the end of our time together today. And before I let you go, I want to say something to you directly. I want you to hear it not as a script, not as a performance, but as one human soul speaking honestly to another. I have sat with women who came into therapy believing that the hardest thing about their lives was what had been done to them. Their marriages, their children who chose distance, the careers that never recognized them, the friendships that faded, the years when they made themselves smaller so that others could feel larger. And what I found, almost without exception, and this will not surprise you, is that the hardest thing about their lives was not any of that. The hardest thing was the story they carried about what all of that meant about them. The story that said, perhaps I deserved it. Perhaps I was too needy. Perhaps I loved too much, hoped too much, expected too much. Perhaps I was, somehow, too much. And I want to say to that story today, gently and absolutely no. You were never too much. You were exactly the right amount of feeling in a world that was not always ready to meet it. Your empathy was never the problem. Your kindness was never the weakness. Your love, wide, patient, enduring, was never the reason you were hurt. You were hurt because someone else was not yet whole enough to honor what you offered. And now, after all of it, here you are, still here, still choosing to remain open, still capable of sitting with a stranger's words and feeling something true move inside you. That is the most remarkable thing I know how to say about a human being. Before you close this video today, will you do one thing for me? Share it. Not on every platform, not for the likes, but with one woman in your life who is quietly carrying something heavy. One sister, one friend, one daughter, one neighbor. She may not have words for what she is carrying, but she will have words for how this made her feel. May you walk forward today carrying only what is truly yours. May you release the weight of every wound that was never meant for you. May you give kindness freely and receive it without guilt. May you build boundaries that protect your spirit and open doors that welcome your joy. May you know in the deepest, quietest place inside yourself that you are worthy of the same tenderness you have so freely given. You are not too much. You are not too old. You are not too late. You are exactly enough. Go gently today, beloved. The world still needs your light.